Hello everybody, this is another Hot Wheels Collector video. Today we are looking at the 57 Jeep FC. This is the last of the three new castings which feature in the 2023 P case. And this one is pretty nice as well, three solid new castings. I actually did put a pull up on my channel where you guys could vote for your favourite new casting in the 2023 P case. And it was actually pretty close between this and the Viper, which I was quite surprised at. I knew that the Viper would be the favourite, but I wasn't expecting it to be very close with either of the other two. But anyways, let me give you some facts about where I actually found this car first, then we'll go into the facts about the real life car. So I actually found this car in a local Smyth toy superstore at the price of £1.69. One of the UK's lowest prices, and is definitely a fair price for such a new casting and new model. And yeah, I pretty much completed the 2023 P case at that store. The only cars I am missing is the Datsun, which I think will be quite difficult to find since it does have the new wheels on it, which debuted on the new Alfa Romeo casting, but also it is just a JDM Datsun. They're always really popular. It also does have a super treasure hunt. It's just going to be wildly popular, but I do hope to find one at some point. Anyways, let me give you some facts about the real life car. So the FC in the Jeep name actually stands for forward control. And from what I could find, that means essentially that the cab is above the engine. Many of these cars had a 4-cylinder F-head engine, which was a 2.2 litre engine. It produced 72 horsepower and 114 pound-feet of torque, converting to about 155 newton meters of torque. The 0 to 60 time for this car is unclear. However, this car was all-wheel drive as standard. The top speed of this car is also unclear, and there's not a whole lot of facts out there about this car in terms of figures of performance. What we do know is just over 30,000 units of this car were produced, and now this car has an approximate value of £46,000, and that is equal to $56,200. Anyways, that's it for the facts about the real life car. Now let's move on to the showcase of the Hot Wheels model. Alright, so kicking off this showcase, we'll first of all take a look at the side of this car, and I'll first of all mention the wheel choice on this thing. So this car is rolling on the off-road beadlock wheels, which have been painted in chrome. I do think that these wheels do suit this car, however it definitely would be nice to see some new wheels come to the mainline for off-road vehicles. I did actually see this comment on my last video, or a few videos ago. I don't think it was on my last video, but yeah, on the GMC Hummer EV, that's what it was on. From Diecast Bro, and he said pretty much the same thing, and I can't agree with them more. It is something that I think Hot Wheels should invest some money in, because there really isn't that many off-road wheels. We have these ones, then we have like the 5-spoke ones, and I think that's really it. So yeah, I do think we should see some new off-road wheels. That would definitely be nice and welcomed by the community. As for the actual colour of this car, it is painted in a metallic dark blue, very similar to that of the Ford F-150 Lightning, which was a new casting in the 2023 P case as well. But it is a little bit different at the same time. I think this is a little bit lighter and more vibrant. As for the actual tamper work on the side of this car, it is quite plentiful. So first of all, we have this mysterious badge on the side. You cannot read it on this car at all on the Hot Wheels model, but I did actually manage to look up and find a real life badge. So all these FCs seem to have this badge on them, and this is what it would read. So in the top rectangle on this badge, it would read Forward FC 150 Control. Then you have the oval, which just contains the writing Jeep, and then we have another rectangle underneath that, which would contain 4-wheel drive. We also do have the door handles on this car tampered in silver, as well as the door lock and unlock button, and like keyhole I suppose, tampered in silver as well, just below that in that little splodge I suppose, that's how we can describe that. The final bit of tamper work we do see is some white writing, which reads Jeep Elephant 4-wheel drive. Once again, drilling in that this car is a 4-wheel drive car. Finally, I'm going to mention a few features about the actual metal casting itself. So then, first of all, I will mention that the wheel arches are actually created through the black base plastic. I will also mention that the fuel tank, or what I believe to be the fuel tank, is also modelled in the metal casting, accurate to the real life car. You can also see this casting does feature wing mirrors. I'm just going to move the camera around slightly so you can see that a little bit better. And finally, I will mention that all the windows on this car are wound up. But interestingly, hopefully you can see this on the card art, the wing mirrors of the real life car are those really thin silver ones, or chrome ones really. But on this one, they've gone for a more modern look. But actually, I don't think they look too bad. So I'm happy that they did add the wing mirrors on this thing. I do like that extra level of detail. Even though they're not that accurate, they still look pretty cool in my opinion. Anyways, moving on to the front of this car. Alright, and taking a look at the front of this car, there is a lot of tamper work here as well, so let's get straight into it. First of all, we have the headlights, which have been tampered in a realistic look. You can also see the lower lights just below that, which are obviously smaller, have also been tampered in the same greyish colour. You can also see the Jeep badge has also been tampered in a dark grey colour. That's really it for the tamper on the front section, but I will mention that there are some lights above the cab of this car which are also tampered, but this time they don't have a realistic look, they're simply just tampered in black. That's it for the tamper work on the front of this car then, so let's talk about the actual metal casting and plastics now. So first of all, we do have the grille, which features in the metal casting. Obviously it has those 7 slots, and I'm pretty sure I read that this actually represents all 7 continents in the world. You can also see this large bash bar which features on this car, as well as the bumper of this car, all created through the black base plastic. And one final thing before we do move on is I will mention that this casting does have windshield wipers. Very nice to see those there. It is a very small detail, but when the Hot Wheels design team do add them, it just adds that extra level of detail, and I'm very impressed. Interesting design choice to do it in the metal casting and not on the windows, but I'd rather have them there than nowhere at all. Cool look indeed. Anyways, that's really it for the front of this car. Now let's move on to the next side of this thing. Alright, and taking a look at the next side of this car, it is pretty much the exact same as the previous, so I'm not going to bore you on this. But obviously you can pause the video here and have a look at the car if you're looking for something specific. If not, let's move on to the rear of this car. Alright, and taking a look at the rear of this car, there is no tamper work here, but honestly there's not a whole lot of detail that would be tampered anyway, so I'm pleased they chose the front over the rear of this car. That's actually surprising to me, because usually they would pick, the side, which means that they would have to tamper less, and thus it would cost them less to produce. But you can see the actual rear lights do feature in the metal casting, so you could add your own details using Sharpie or acrylic paint. And that's really the only detail missing. We also do have the rear bumper of this car, created through the black base plastic. And you could also see 2 tow hooks feature on the rear of this car as well. Those don't receive any tamper, so again you could use Sharpie or acrylic paint. You could paint them in red or silver or whatever you want, but those are obviously in that plastic as well. And from the rear you can just see some of the base of the car, which does feature some of the suspension system. It does look quite nice from the rear and adds to that off-road look in my opinion. Anyways, that's it for the rear of this car. Now let's move on to the top of this thing. Alright, and taking a look at the top of this car, there is a lot of detail here, even though there is no tamper work. So first of all, we'll take a look at the bed of this thing, and I will mention that there is a spare wheel in the bed, which is created through the black interior plastic. The majority of this bed is also created through that black interior plastic. You can also see what appears to be a V-shaped engine. So this car appears to have had some kind of engine swap from the Hot Wheels design team. So obviously the real life version of this car might have been a bit boring to a few people. So I think Hot Wheels have kind of made their own custom design here. They've obviously added that big bull bar, which I've already mentioned on the front of this, to this car to make it a little bit more off-road like. And they've also swapped a big engine, what appears to be a V8 engine, into the bed of this truck. So this car no longer has the engine underneath the cab, although the stock version of this car would have had that. And you can finally see what appears to be a large air intake or intercooler kind of system there, which is created through the black interior plastic as well, feeding air to the engine of this car. Since it has been swapped to the rear of the car, it no longer has the front vents actually working for it, so it has to have a different cooling method. Hence Hot Wheels have added that large kind of intercooler or some kind of intake system there, so that the engine can stay cool and operate properly. Really cool amount of detail there in the truck bed. I didn't expect there to be that much detail, but there is. And finally, we do have a sunroof on this car, which is actually created through the window plastic, which obviously is made to represent the glass of the real car. Finally, you can actually see those off-road lights which feature above the cab, featuring in the metal casting itself, and those are painted in the same colour as the rest of the body of this car. The only tamper they do receive is from the front, and obviously they are tampered in black, as I've already mentioned. Anyways, that is it for the top of this car, and that is also it for the showcase of this thing. So now let's move on to my final thoughts and review on this car. Alright, so now it's time for my final thoughts and review on this car. I really do like this casting. I think it looks very accurate to the real life car, whilst also having a very heavily modified look with that engine in the truck bed, as well as that large ram bar or bull bar on the front of the car, and also having those large off-road lights on the truck cab roof. It looks really interesting and cool. I also do quite like the colour choice, it's an interesting one. When I first saw it, I didn't really like it. It looked like that Hot Wheels weird blue that they use on some of their kind of like Hot Wheels livery cars, you know, where they have that huge Hot Wheels logo on the side. I really don't like that colour, but I thought this car had that same colour, but it doesn't look like it does. It actually looks a lot better in person for me. I also do like the wheel choice and then being done in chrome as well. And yeah, the tamper work is also really nice, making it look very realistic. Love the fact that they did the headlights and all that stuff on the front instead of doing the rear. I'd rather have more detail than less detail when we're going to mainlines and we have to pick one or the other. It's just done very well, and I'm actually pleasantly surprised at how good this car is. When I first picked it up, it wasn't quite my cup of tea, but I really am enjoying this thing more than I expected to. But anyways, that does lead me on to my score of 10. When I have this car out of 10, it's going to be receiving a very solid 9 out of 10. I really do like this car, and it definitely deserves that rating in my opinion. I highly recommend you pick this thing up if you do see it in stores, especially since this is a first edition casting, so even if you don't particularly love it, it's not going to lose any value. It's just going to go up and up and up in value, since this is the first ever time this casting has ever been done by the Hot Wheels team. But anyways, that does wrap up my video, so if you guys did enjoy, make sure to like. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, and also press that notification bell so you do not miss any new uploads. Remember, you can also share this video with any friends, family, and any groups who may be interested. But remember, don't feel pressured to if you don't feel like you have anybody who may be interested. You watching this video all the way to the end means so much to me, and I really do thank you for making it all the way up until this point. But anyways, that's it for this video, so I hope you guys did enjoy, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Bye bye everyone.